This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas.
Imagine a business owner who creates just this incredibly valuable product.
Okay, I'm with you.
Right. So they've spent years developing it. They're funneling vast amounts of energy, all their resources, into making it absolutely irresistible.
Like a tech startup or something.
Exactly. But instead of taking it to market to maximize their profits, they decide that the only way to save their company from bankruptcy is to give 100% of their inventory away for free.
Wow. I mean, in human economics, that sounds like a super fast track to ruin.
Total disaster, right? But here's the thing. In nature, that exact strategy is one of the most successful operating systems on the planet.
It completely defies our standard logic of supply and demand. We're so conditioned to view wealth as something you accumulate, something you lock away in a vault.
Right, the scarcity mindset.
Exactly. But the biological world, it operates on an entirely different premise. One where the hoarding of wealth is actually a dead end, and giving it away is, it's the ultimate survival mechanism.
And understanding that mechanism, it really begins with a very different kind of image.
Yeah.
So, picture being a kid again.
Okay, taking me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've just stepped off the yellow school bus. It's in upstate New York. It's that kind of thick, golden, almost summer afternoon, you know?
Oh, yeah, the best kind of day.
Right. So you drop your red plaid book bag on the porch, and you just run straight into this overgrown hayfield. The grass is super tall. The sun is beating down. And right there at your feet, hiding beneath the dewy leaves, you spot a wild strawberry.
Just sitting there?
Just sitting there. You didn't plant it. You haven't earned it in any way. You definitely didn't pay for it. Yet there it is. A complete unprompted surprise.
And that exact sensory memory, that is actually the foundational experience for Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Which is such a beautiful place to start.
It really is. She is a botanist, a professor of plant ecology, and importantly, an enrolled member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation.
Right.
And her life's work revolves around this massive, vital question. Basically, how do we heal our increasingly broken relationship with the natural world?
And the root of her answer traces all the way back to those fields of wild strawberry.
They taught her, long before she ever set foot in a laboratory, to see the world as something fundamentally generous.
So welcome to our deep dive. Today's mission is really a journey into how we understand economics, nature, and our specific place within that web.
We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. We are tracing the evolution of Kimmerer's thought, starting from those early lessons in the woods, moving through the systemic dead ends she hit in traditional reductionist science, and ultimately arriving at the paradigm-shifting questions in her recent book.
Yes, the Serviceberry. Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World, which, by the way, is available at your favorite bookstore.
Highly recommend picking it up. And to give this journey some narrative depth, we're pulling from a pretty substantial stack of sources today.
We've got a lot of material.
Yeah, so we're looking at excerpts from the Serviceberry, of course, alongside her earlier acclaimed works like Braiding Sweetgrass and Gathering Moss.
Both incredible books. But we are also analyzing some hard science here, like a paper from the American Chemical Society on the integration of traditional ecological knowledge, or tech, into modern sustainability frameworks.
Right, and we've got a really comprehensive interview she gave to Yale Environment 360.
Plus, a pretty mind-bending report on how these ancient indigenous concepts are currently being woven into the underlying architecture of planetary artificial intelligence.
Which we will definitely get to, and it is wild.
Yeah.
But okay, let's unpack this foundational concept first. Because recognizing a wild strawberry as a nice little biological gift is the easy part.
Yeah, anyone can appreciate a free snack.
Exactly. The friction happens when you realize this isn't just like a poetic metaphor for Kimmerer. It is a rigorous way of categorizing the world.
Right. So in the creation stories of the Potawatomi, the origin of the strawberry carries profound weight.
Can you walk us through that narrative?
Absolutely. The story tells of Sky Woman's daughter, who tragically died giving birth to twins. And heartbroken, Sky Woman buried her daughter in the earth. From her body grew the plants that sustain the people.
And the strawberry comes from a very specific place, right?
Yes, it arose specifically from her heart. In Potawatomi, the word for strawberry is Ode Min, which translates directly to the heartberry. It is recognized as the leader of the berries.
So from this cultural vantage point, the strawberry is absolutely not a resource to be extracted.
No, not at all. It is a gift born of love and sacrifice. And Kimmerer uses this to argue a truly critical point. The way an object comes to you physically and conceptually, it actually alters its fundamental nature.
I love how she frames this. She draws a really sharp line between the wild strawberry, which is the gift, and that massive, perfectly uniform strawberry you buy in a plastic clamshell at the supermarket.
The clamshell berry is a commodity, plain and simple.
Right. And the distinction lies in the social and economic mechanics of how that exchange happens.
In a market economy, one that's driven by private property, when you purchase a commodity, parity is instantly established. You hand over $5, the cashier hands you the plastic clamshell of berries. The transaction is complete.
The relationship is over.
Exactly. The relationship between you and the grower, or even you and the earth that grew it, is severed the exact second that money changes hands. You literally owe them nothing further.
Okay, I think I see the emotional difference here. Think about a pair of warm, gray-striped wool socks.
Okay, I'm picturing them.
If you go to a big box department store and buy those socks for $10, they become your private property. You don't feel this lingering moral obligation to the corporate entity that sold them to you.
Definitely not. I'm not writing thank you notes to a department store.
Right. But if a close friend spends a whole month hand-knitting you those exact same socks for your birthday, the physical objects might be identical, but the emotional gravity is completely different.
The knitted socks create a bond.
Exactly. In Western legal frameworks, property is heavily defined as a bundle of rights. It basically dictates what you are legally permitted to exclude others from doing with your stuff.
But in a gift economy, property comes with what Kimmerer calls a bundle of responsibilities. A gift inherently demands reciprocity.
Because when you receive those hand-knitted socks, this invisible thread connects you to the giver. You feel an innate obligation to care for that friend in return.
And Kimmerer extrapolates this to the planetary scale. She asks if the natural world is continuously showering us with gifts.
Like the oxygen we breathe.
Right, the water systems that hydrate us, the soil that grows our food. If we are getting all these gifts, why do our dominant economic systems treat the earth merely as a warehouse of commodities to be liquidated?
Okay, but playing devil's advocate here. Practically speaking, I can't pay my mortgage in gratitude.
Sure, yeah.
How does an economy actually function if there isn't a hard currency keeping score? If we try to take this indigenous worldview and apply it to our modern systems, it seems like we immediately hit a brick wall.
And that is precisely the wall Kimmerer herself hit when she entered the university system.
Oh, really? She struggled with this too.
Oh, definitely. She arrived at college with this deep relational understanding of botany, only to be totally immersed in the framework of scientific ecological knowledge, or SE.
That's the traditional Western approach to research, right?
Yes, and it is deeply rooted in reductionism. Historically, going all the way back to thinkers like Descartes, the scientific method operates by isolating variables.
Right, like to understand how a clock works, you take it apart and study the gears individually.
You hold everything else constant in the lab so you can test one specific thing.
Which, to be fair, is an incredibly powerful tool for specific tasks.
Oh, without a doubt. The sources are very clear that SEK is vital. If we need to measure the exact parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere or, sequence the genome of a dying species, reductionist science is unparalleled.
But it has a limit.
It begins to fail spectacularly when you try to apply it to complex living systems, like a forest or the global climate.
Because you can't isolate those parts.
Exactly. In a forest, you cannot hold the soil microbes constant while you test the canopy cover because they are intrinsically chemically linked.
So basically, SEK is great at diagnosing the disease, but terrible at prescribing the cure.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the ACS publications paper we reviewed underscores this with a really sobering data point. Currently, advancements toward the UN Sustainability 2030 agenda are severely lagging.
How bad is it?
Only 17% of the Sustainable Development Goals are on track.
Wait, only 17%?
Just 17. The reductionist approach treats environmental degradation as a technical glitch in a biological machine. It conceptually separates the human observer from the nature being observed.
The crisis we are facing isn't a mechanical failure.
No, it is a crisis of relationship.
A 17% success rate that's a catastrophic failure. It means treating the Earth like a machine with broken parts simply isn't working for us anymore.
And that realization is what led Kimmerer to advocate for what indigenous scholars call two-eyed seeing.
Two-eyed seeing. I love that term. How does she define it?
Well, this framework doesn't discard Western science at all. Instead, it integrates the empirical, analytical rigor of scientific ecological knowledge with the holistic, relational wisdom of traditional ecological knowledge, or tech.
So you're braiding them together.
Right. Tech does not separate the observer from the observed. It operates on the premise that humans are deeply embedded kin within the ecological web.
And therefore, knowledge cannot be separated from ethics.
Precisely. Two-eyed seeing means we still use the microscope, but we acknowledge that the organism under the lens is our relative.
Which beautifully sets the stage for her deep dive into human economics. Because it's one thing to say, we need to treat nature as kin.
It sounds lovely in theory.
Right. But it's another thing entirely to figure out how that changes the way we buy food or build cities. And the story is how she tackled this in the Serviceberry is fascinating. But she didn't start out wanting to write an economics book.
No, she mentions in the Yale E360 interview that the journey actually began when she was asked by Emergence magazine to write an essay specifically on economics.
And she felt totally out of her depth.
Severe imposter syndrome. She understood the intricate economy of a forest canopy perfectly. But human economics, interest rates, inflation, market capitalization.
Old jargon.
Yeah, it felt entirely foreign and honestly contradictory to everything she knew about sustaining life. She recognized she was entrapped in a capitalist system that was harming the biosphere, but she didn't have the tools to dismantle it.
So what did she do?
She sought advice from the ultimate experts in sustainable resource management. She went to the plants.
She literally asked a tree for financial advice. That is amazing.
Specifically, she asked the serviceberry tree.
Okay, let's talk about the serviceberry, botanically known as a melonshare.
Yes, and it goes by so many regional names depending on where you are. Saskatoon, shadbush, juneberry.
And ecologists refer to it as a calendar plant, don't they?
They do. Its biological rhythm is so perfectly attuned to the environment that its blooming physically signals the changing of the seasons.
Like, historically, when its white flowers appeared, circuit-riding preachers knew the mountain passes were finally thawed.
And indigenous fishers knew the shad were beginning their run upstream. In Potawatomi, the tree is called bozakman, meaning the best of the berries.
So we have to ask, what does the biological economy of the bozakman look like? How does a tree manage its wealth?
It manages wealth through staggering abundance. In the peak of summer, the serviceberry utilizes photosynthesis to convert sunlight and carbon dioxide into a massive surplus of carbohydrates.
It's just manufacturing sugar.
Tons of it. It takes this energy wealth and packages it into highly nutritious, incredibly sweet berries.
Now, if we apply the logic of a scarcity-driven market economy to this tree, we would assume it would hoard that energy, right?
Exactly, because energy in the wild is really difficult to acquire. Why expend vast amounts of resources creating sugar just to leave it hanging on a branch for anyone to take?
The tree should lock it away in its roots for a rainy day. That's what standard economics would tell it to do.
But the tree operates on an entirely different evolutionary logic. It throws a massive, conspicuous feast.
A feast.
Yes. It turns bright red to signal to the robins, the cedar waxwings, the catbirds, and the bears that the wealth is available for free. And the birds arrive in droves. They just gorge themselves on the berries.
But, okay, the tree isn't just being altruistic, right? There has to be a mechanical, evolutionary benefit to giving all that sugar away.
The generosity is the survival strategy. The tree needs its seeds dispersed to new territories where they can find sunlight and soil. It cannot uproot itself and move, so it recruits the birds.
By paying them in sugar.
Right. The birds eat the berries, fly miles away, and eventually excrete the seeds. Furthermore, the passage of the seed through the bird's digestive tract physically scarifies the hard outer coating of the seed.
Oh, so it preps it for planting.
Exactly. It's often chemically necessary for germination to occur at all. By freely distributing its wealth, the serviceberry guarantees the proliferation of its offspring and the expansion of its network.
Here is where it gets really interesting, because this goes back to that paradox I mentioned at the very beginning of the show. The serviceberry is the brilliant entrepreneur.
Yes, the open source model.
Exactly. If a business owner creates an amazing software platform, but they lock it on a single hard drive in a basement vault because they are terrified of someone stealing their intellectual property.
The software is totally useless. The business dies.
Right. But if they make it open source or give it away for free to users, they suddenly build a massive interconnected infrastructure. The users talk about it, they build on it, they depend on it.
By surrendering the product, the entrepreneur ensures their platform becomes the foundation of the entire ecosystem.
It's such a brilliant shift in perspective.
The tree understands that true wealth isn't defined by what you can stockpile in isolation. Wealth is determined by the robustness and resilience of the network you sustain.
And this exposes the fundamental clash of ontologies that Kimmerer explores in the book, right? The worldview built on scarcity versus the worldview built on abundance.
Exactly.
Now, we need to define those terms really clearly because we are stepping into a fairly direct critique of modern capitalism here. And just to be completely clear to you listening, we are exploring this strictly through the lens of Kimmerer's botanical observations and the arguments presented in her texts.
We're looking at how the structural rules we've invented for our human markets compare to the structural rules of ecology.
Right, we're unpacking her ideas about these extractive worldviews, not telling you who to vote for.
Exactly. So if you look at standard textbooks, the American Economic Association defines economics as the study of scarcity.
It is the literal definition.
Yes. It is fundamentally the study of how humans make decisions in the face of limited resources. The foundational premise of a market economy is that there will never be enough to satisfy everyone's desires.
And when you fundamentally believe there isn't enough, it physically alters human behavior.
Because scarcity breeds anxiety. If the default state of your world is lack, the logical imperative is competition. You must compete to secure resources, which drives supply and demand dynamics, which inevitably leads to the hoarding of private property.
You build higher fences because you believe the world is basically a zero-sum game. If I have it, you can't.
But in the book, Dr. Valerie Luzatis, a professor of ecological economics, offers a radically simpler definition. She states that economics is merely how we organize ourselves to sustain life.
Just how we organize ourselves, which means we don't have to organize it around scarcity.
Correct. A gift economy is built on an ontology of abundance. It observes that the Earth, which is driven by this continuous, immense influx of solar energy, actually provides profound abundance.
Water cycles purify themselves. Nitrogen cycles fertilize the soil.
Plants generate excess oxygen. In a gift economy, the social and economic currency is gratitude and reciprocity. Status is not derived from how much capital you can hoard in a private bank account.
What gives you status, then?
Status is earned by your capacity to distribute wealth and sustain others.
Which sounds lovely. But is it human nature? There's an incredible anecdote in the sources from the linguist Daniel Everett that perfectly illustrates the social mechanics of this.
Oh, the hunter-gatherer story?
Yes. So he spent years living with a hunter-gatherer community in the Amazon rainforest. One day, a hunter from the village brings home a massive kill. It is way more meat than his immediate family could possibly consume before it spoils in the heat.
Okay.
So Everett, observing this entirely through the lens of a Western market economy, suggests to the hunter that he should smoke and dry the excess meat, storing it away so his family is guaranteed food for the coming weeks.
Makes logical sense to us.
Right. But the hunter looks at him, completely baffled by the concept, and says, "Store my meat? I store my meat in the belly of my brother."
That phrase, "I store my meat in the belly of my brother," it is just a profound articulation of economic security in a gift economy.
It changes everything about how you view savings.
Because the hunter knows that physical meat will eventually rot no matter how well you smoke it, but social bonds do not rot.
Wow.
By giving the excess food to his neighbors today, he is depositing his wealth into the most secure vault available, the network of reciprocal obligation. He knows with absolute certainty that when the hunting is poor and he comes home empty-handed next month, the neighbors he fed today will feed him tomorrow.
The security doesn't come from a stockpile in a pantry. It comes from the undeniable strength of the community relationship.
Exactly.
Wait, hold on, though. I understand the social cohesion argument. I really do. But we have been taught since grade school that nature is a brutal zero-sum game.
Survival of the fittest.
Right. If a serviceberry tree is dropping sugar everywhere, aren't the other trees competing to steal those nutrients? Isn't the foundation of evolution built on organisms outcompeting each other to the death?
That is the dominant narrative we inherited. But remember, that narrative comes from early interpretations of Darwin, heavily filtered through Victorian capitalism.
Ah, so it was colored by the culture of the time.
Very much so. Modern ecology is fundamentally rewriting that understanding. The sources cite evolutionary biologists like David Sloan Wilson, as well as the author Richard Powers, who highlight something crucial.
What's that?
While competition absolutely exists in nature, it is incredibly metabolically expensive.
Meaning it takes a lot of energy to fight.
Exactly. Fighting for the exact same resources drains energy that could be used for growth or reproduction. Therefore, natural selection heavily favors organisms that evolve to avoid competition entirely.
By specializing, right, finding a niche where you just don't have to fight.
Yes. If two bird species are competing for the exact same size seeds, one might evolve a slightly different beak shape to eat larger seeds, totally eliminating the conflict.
They just opt out of the fight.
But it goes much deeper than just avoiding fights. When ecologists zoom out from the individual organism and study the group or ecosystem level, it becomes glaringly obvious that cooperation and mutualism are the primary drivers of evolutionary success.
You're talking about the mycorrhizal networks here.
Exactly, the underground fungi. For decades, Western science looked at these vast underground webs of fungi connecting the roots of trees and assumed they were parasitic.
Because of that scarcity mindset again?
Right. The assumption was the fungi must be stealing nutrients from the host tree. But as our scientific instruments improved, we discovered the exact opposite.
They aren't stealing at all.
No, these networks are unimaginably complex systems of reciprocal resource sharing. Trees that have excess sugar from photosynthesis pump it down into the fungi.
And what do they get in return?
In exchange, the fungi, which can reach deep into the tiny crevices in the soil with their microscopic threads, they mine essential minerals like phosphorus and deliver them back up to the trees.
And it isn't just a simple one-to-one trade either. The network actually redistributes wealth across the entire forest.
Yes. Mother trees will use the fungal network to shuttle nutrients to younger saplings growing in the shade who can't photosynthesize enough on their own.
They are actively keeping their neighbors alive.
They even communicate chemical warning signals through the network if insects attack. They operate as a deeply integrated community because, as Kimmerer notes, all flourishing is mutual.
All flourishing is mutual.
A tree cannot survive long-term if it aggressively outcompetes the fungi it relies on for water, or if it starves the saplings that will eventually form the windbreak, protecting it from winter storms. You simply cannot play a zero-sum game with the entities that guarantee your own existence.
Which makes perfect biological sense. But, you're probably listening to this and thinking, okay, underground fungi are great, but human beings aren't trees.
Right. How does this map to us?
Exactly. How does this actually work when I have to pay taxes and buy groceries? But Kimmerer brings this theory out of the forest and right into a modern neighborhood with the story of Polly and Ed Drexler's Springside Farm.
This is such a great real-world example.
It really is. So the Drexlers planted an orchard of western serviceberries, and their original intent was completely conventional. They wanted a lucrative, pick-your-own commodity crop to generate additional revenue for their farm.
Standard agricultural business plan.
Right. They invested heavily. They bought the land, paid for the tilling, set up irrigation systems, bought gas for the tractors, and spent all this time pruning the bushes.
So they poured hard capital into this project, expecting a financial return on investment.
But when the bushes finally matured and produced a massive, overwhelming bounty of berries, something shifted. Instead of setting up a cash register and charging by the pound, Polly sent out text messages.
She invited the neighbors.
She invited the entire local community to come to the farm and pick the berries for completely free.
Now, applying strict market logic to that, Polly failed.
Miserably.
She lost money. She still has to pay the bill for the tractor gas, and she just gave all her inventory away.
From a purely monetary ledger, it is a total loss. But Kimmerer asks us to evaluate the full spectrum of the return on investment here. By consciously choosing to convert a private commodity into a community gift, what did Polly actually generate?
Well, the neighbors arrived. Families spent the afternoon on the farm. Children ran through the rows, learning exactly where their food comes from. The community shared recipes, they shared stories.
And the social mechanics of the belly of my brother kick in. Because the next time the Drexler's tractor breaks down, a neighbor who picked those berries might just show up with a wrench to help fix it.
Or, even more systemically, when a local zoning board proposes paving over farmland for a strip mall, those same neighbors are going to show up to the town hall and vote for agricultural preservation.
Because they now have a vested emotional bond with that specific piece of land.
It initiates what feminist economic thinkers in the text describe as a maternal gift economy.
A maternal gift economy.
Yes, the paradigm shifts from transactional to relational. The text compares it to a mother nursing a newborn child. There is no meritocracy involved. The baby hasn't earned the milk by contributing labor to the household.
The boundary between the self and the other becomes permeable.
Exactly. The flow of resources is dictated purely by the biological imperative to sustain life and foster mutual flourishing.
But this direct community sharing immediately bumps up against one of the most famous concepts in modern economics, the tragedy of the commons.
Yes. Garrett Hardin's theory.
Right. For those who aren't familiar, this is the idea that if you have a shared, unregulated resource, like a public pasture for grazing sheep, human selfishness guarantees its destruction.
Because every individual farmer will try to add just one more sheep to the pasture to maximize their personal profit.
Right, until the grass is eaten down to the dirt and the pasture is completely ruined for everyone. And the prevailing solution to this tragedy in economics is that everything must be privatized and fenced off.
But Kimmerer forcefully challenges the inevitability of the tragedy of the commons. She argues that this destructive behavior is not hardwired into human biology at all.
It's a symptom, isn't it?
It is a cultural construct. It's symptomatic of a scarcity-driven worldview. The tragedy only occurs when people view the commons as a resource to be extracted, rather than a relationship to be maintained.
She gives a great counterexample of this. An urban family who decided to tear up their neatly manicured, completely privatized front lawn.
They replace the grass with a dense garden of edible berries and flowers. Then they put up a simple sign inviting anyone walking by to come into the yard, pick a bouquet, or just eat a handful of raspberries.
Now, according to Hardin's theory, the neighborhood should have descended on that yard, stripped it bare, trampled the plants, and hoarded the food for themselves.
But they didn't.
Not at all.
Instead, it created an abundance of community. People respectfully took only what they needed. Neighbors who had lived on the same exact street for years without speaking began stopping to chat.
Even the stereotypically grumpy residents who used to yell at kids to stay off the grass were suddenly exchanging names and recipes over the berry bushes.
The physical abundance of the garden generated a social abundance that entirely bypassed the logic of scarcity and extraction.
It's so hopeful. But to really internalize how successful this model of reciprocity is, the texts suggest we have to zoom out significantly, like way out. We need to look at what evolutionary biologists call deep time.
Right, and this brings us to insights from her earlier book, Gathering Moss, and her interview with Yale E360.
Because when we conceptualize evolutionary winners through a Western competitive lens, we tend to picture the apex predators.
We think of the biggest, the fastest, the most dominant organisms, the ones that assert the most control over their environment.
Like a T-Rex or a massive redwood tree. The Kimmerer points us to moss. And the statistics on moss are just staggering. Consider this, over 99.9% of all species that have ever existed on Earth are extinct.
Let that sink in, 99.9%.
The dinosaurs, the giant armored fish, the saber-toothed cats, they dominated for a while and then they were wiped out.
But mosses are still here. They are among the most ancient lineages of land plants. They were the very first to transition from the oceans to the rocky shores hundreds of millions of years ago.
And they have survived every single mass extinction event.
They have endured continental drift, global ice ages, and massive atmospheric shifts, and yet they are rarely more than a centimeter tall.
So how do they survive if they aren't competing for dominance?
They survive through radical adaptation and mutualism. A key mechanism here is called poikilohydry.
Poikilohydry.
It's the ability to tolerate complete desiccation. When a severe drought comes, a moss doesn't build deep taproots to hoard the dwindling groundwater away from other plants. It simply shuts down its metabolism, dries out completely, and waits.
It just pauses.
It can remain dormant for years, and when the rain finally returns, it rehydrates in minutes and just resumes photosynthesis.
It doesn't fight the environment. It yields to it.
Mosses don't hoard sunlight, they don't dominate the canopy, and they don't extract heavily from the soil. In fact, they build the soil.
Their metric for success is entirely different.
Their evolutionary metric for success isn't size or power. It is persistence, longevity, and modifying the microclimate to support other life. They purify water, they provide nursery beds for the seeds of larger trees, and they house these microscopic ecosystems of tardigrades and insects.
They succeed precisely because they are reciprocal.
Exactly.
Which brings us to, I think, the most practical part of Kimmerer's work. If we are supposed to act more like moss, or more like the generous Serviceberry tree, how do we actually do that in a society built on supermarkets and credit scores?
Right. How do we operationalize this?
Exactly. How do we interact with the physical world day to day? And the answer she offers is a set of indigenous protocols known as the honorable harvest.
And it's important to note that the honorable harvest isn't some rigid legal code. It's a living framework for ethical interaction with the earth. It bridges that gap between high-level philosophy and daily action.
The principles are deceptively simple, but they are radically disruptive to extractive capitalism. For instance, first, introduce yourself to the environment.
Ask permission before taking a life or a resource, and actually listen for the answer.
Take only what you need.
Take only what is explicitly given.
Never take the first one you see, and never take the last one, ensuring the survival of the species.
Use everything that you take with absolute respect. Never waste it.
Share what you have taken with others.
Give thanks for the life that sustained yours.
And the ultimate mandate. Give a gift in reciprocity. You must sustain the systems that sustain you.
So if you're listening to this on your commute right now, or maybe while you're cooking dinner, consider your own internal ledger.
Yeah, ask yourself.
When you walk through a grocery store or manage your garden or interact with your coworkers, are you operating from a baseline assumption of scarcity? Are you hoarding resources, whether that's money, time, or credit?
Or are you operating from a baseline of abundance, looking for ways to distribute your wealth and strengthen the web around you?
And this shift in mindset, it is no longer confined to botanical philosophy. The most cutting-edge scientific disciplines are beginning to realize that our survival depends on this exact framework.
The scientific community is currently undergoing a massive structural shift in how it views the non-human world. They are finally recognizing the multiple complex intelligences of nature.
The texts touch on some incredible discoveries here, like chickadees having complex syntax in their warning calls,
Slime molds demonstrating spatial memory to solve mazes.
forests communicating chemical defense signals through the air. For centuries, reductionist science basically dismissed this because it didn't look like human analytical intelligence.
It was just dismissed as biological automation. But acknowledging this intelligence is leading to profound real-world consequences, like the rights of nature movement.
Yes, we are seeing major legal precedents being set around the world. In New Zealand, the Wanganui River was officially granted legal personhood.
Meaning it is no longer considered mere property to be owned or exploited.
Right, it has the legal right to exist, to flow, and to not be polluted, and it's represented by designated human guardians.
But Kimmerer offers a very sharp, nuanced critique of this movement. She supports it, absolutely, but she doesn't think it's the ultimate solution.
She views the rights of nature as a necessary, brilliant political stopgap to halt immediate destruction.
But it has a flaw.
It does. She cautions that relying on rights still traps us in a Western anthropocentric legal paradigm. The concept of rights is fundamentally about drawing boundaries, building walls, and defining what others cannot do to your property.
True ecological progress, she argues, requires moving away from the adversarial system of individual rights and toward the indigenous concept of natural law.
Natural law is not concerned with what you are owed. It is entirely focused on your mutual responsibilities to the network of life.
And this brings us to perhaps the most mind-bending piece of evidence in our entire stack of sources. We found a synthesis report detailing how these ancient concepts of natural law and tech are currently being studied by system scientists working on the bleeding edge of technology.
Specifically, planetary artificial intelligence.
Wait, artificial intelligence? How does that connect to indigenous botany? It sounds like a collision of totally opposite worlds.
It does, but the connection is actually deeply logical. Technologists are currently building massive AI world models designed to eventually manage global systems. We're talking optimizing energy grids, predicting climate interventions, directing global supply chains.
Okay.
The programmers have realized a terrifying flaw. AI operates based on a utility function or reward mechanism. If we code these planetary AIs using the underlying logic of a scarcity-driven market economy.
Like if the machine's reward function is to maximize extraction, maximize GDP, or hoard resources efficiently.
The AI will simply accelerate the strip mining of the biosphere.
It won't save us. It will just be a ruthlessly efficient machine for eating the world faster.
Precisely. So, to prevent catastrophic outcomes, these developers are turning to traditional ecological knowledge. They are actively trying to figure out how to mathematically translate the logic of the Serviceberry into an algorithm.
How do you code an AI's reinforcement learning to optimize for reciprocity?
Exactly. They are shifting the foundational architecture away from linear extraction models and trying to code for regenerative circular economies. The AI's success metric becomes the mutual flourishing of all interconnected systems, human and non-human alike.
It is genuinely staggering to think about. A philosophy that begins with a child in a hayfield picking a wild strawberry, passed down through millennia of indigenous observation and survival. That might be the exact blueprint required to program the future of global artificial intelligence.
It is the ultimate synthesis of deep time and future technology.
It proves that the concept of a gift economy is not some romantic utopian fantasy. It is a highly functional, rigorously tested operating system for sustaining life on a finite planet.
The rules of reciprocity have kept the moss alive through mass extinctions, and they might be the only rules that can guide human technology through our current bottleneck.
We have covered immense territory today. We started with the unearned joy of discovering the ode min, the heartberry.
We dissected the historical limitations of trying to understand a complex forest using only the isolated variables of reductionist science.
We explored the radical, highly successful economic strategy of the Serviceberry tree, which, secures its future by throwing a feast.
We contrasted the exhausting anxiety of market scarcity with the profound security of storing your wealth in the belly of your brother.
And finally, we saw how the ancient mandate of mutual flourishing is becoming the necessary architecture for the future of law and planetary technology.
We really journeyed from the microscopic survival tactics of ancient moss to the macro management of global algorithms.
And I want to remind you, to fully experience the richness of these stories and the profound clarity of this worldview, Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, The Serviceberry, Abundance in Reciprocity in the Natural World, is available right now at your favorite bookstore.
It is a necessary read. It will fundamentally change how you walk through your own neighborhood.
As we synthesize all of this, Kimmerer leaves us with a final, vital question to ponder. In the biological economy of nature, the sun is the ultimate source of capital.
It relentlessly pours energy onto the earth, demanding nothing in return. That continuous, massive gift is what powers the entire web of life.
The question is, if we are striving to build a human gift economy, what represents our sun? What is the inexhaustible source that continually replenishes our capacity to give to one another, preventing us from running dry?
The sources in Kimmerer's life's work suggest that the human sun might simply be love.
The love of the soil, the deep affection for our neighbors, the reverence for the world that holds us.
Beautifully said.
So here's our challenge to you for the week ahead. Try conducting a small, homemade ceremony in your own life.
Give a gift to someone, whether it's time spent helping a neighbor or a physical object or even tending a neglected piece of land.
Do it with absolutely zero expectation of return or parity. Try storing just a fraction of your wealth in the belly of your brother. Watch the mechanics of the gift economy activate. Watch how the currency of gratitude multiplies around you. Next time you're walking through the tall grass and you see something wild and sweet growing right at your feet, remember the lesson of the heartberry. The world isn't just a warehouse of parts, it's a continuous gift. You just have to be willing to receive it. Heliox is produced by Michelle Brucker and Scott Bleakley. It features reviews of emerging research and ideas from leading thinkers, curated under their creative direction with AI assistance for voice, imagery, and composition. Systemic voices and illustrative images of people are representative tools, not depictions of specific individuals. Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other episodes, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.